Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. So let's slowly open our eyes. And this is something that we can always do through the day, no matter where we are, whether we're at home or work. It only takes about 5 minutes. And what it does is it can help to get us back to a state of what's called homeostasis. It means back to evenness. That being said, so today's topic, the last 2 weeks, this is the third session. Actually, this is the fourth session. We've had one workshop too. So the first class we dealt with Maitri, friendship. And we talked about Buddhism from a yogic perspective as well as a Buddhist perspective. Again, we talked from a Buddhist perspective. It said first it has to start, friendship has to start at home. It has to become abundant within ourselves. Kalyan Mitta, loving kindness first towards ourselves in Maitri. The next stage is what we say Karuna. We talked about that last week. Same thing, compassion. But not compassion, first compassion again according to Buddhism, first compassion for ourselves. Before others, compassion towards ourselves. And we talked about the nuances of that. And we also talked about Ramakrishna's definition of Karuna or Daya, which meant not Daya but Sheva. Not having compassion, but Shiva Gyane Jiva Sheva. Realizing oneself as God, seeing that living consciousness and serving that consciousness in others. Buddhism, though, says this Karuna, compassion, again, it starts at home. It has to be so abundant. And I've said this, I think, twice, but like the Buddhist astronomer in one of my classes in Harvard said, he says, Swamiji, it should become so abundant like the sun. The sun becomes so abundant with energy that it just explodes and projects that light to the rest of the universe. Same thing, our Karuna first has to come within us. Our Maitri, friendship, first has to start within. And it should become so abundant that it then expands to the entire world. This is what they call the Bodhisattva ideal in Buddhism. But now today we're dealing with the third quality, Upekshanam, which means in the Yoga Sutras, indifference, and in Buddhism it means equanimity. Another way to look at it is evil people, toxic people. We won't use the word evil. In Vedanta we don't use evil because nobody's really a sinner. Everyone's divine. It's just we're mired in ignorance. So this should be an obvious question, but I always start off with a question to the audience. How many people here have toxic people in their lives? Okay, you guys don't. Wow, you guys either must be retired or lucky.
It depends on what the definition of toxic is.
Okay, it depends on what the definition of toxic is. Okay, well, in the home, workplace, in-laws, and that's a good point. So toxic, what we mean is that if we have to deal with that person regularly, afterwards we feel emotionally drained. And that's a big thing. One thing is to be physically drained. This, this Annamaya Kosha, this physical body. But if you get emotionally drained, then you can't do anything intellectual, definitely not meditation. And that also affects your physical energy. That's why we're talking about this, because if we're not harmonious in our relationships, it's impossible to meditate. And I've heard many nice explanations on YouTube from the Vedantic perspective. Just think you're that Atman who practices Sakshi Chaitanya and just watch it as a play. Watch the, watch the things going on. I'm the Atman. I'm just watching this play which is not real. It's just this world, Jagat. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. God alone is real. The world is an illusion. Unfortunately, though, we find this is a problem even in our ashrams, even in churches, temples, mosques. You find that monastics, householders, especially those who come and do service, it becomes difficult. And many leave, or many reduce their association with an ashram or a temple or whatever because of work relations. So it's not so simple. Same thing in the workplace or in home. Even with monastics, I'm glad this is a private ashram. I'm glad this is not wide broadcast. Even in a monastery, right? So, so that's why my credentials, they say adhikari is competence in the field. So I lived with 600 monks in Bellarmont, and then 20 monks or 15 monks in 2 floors in Advaita Ashram, Kolkata. So I have also I have my certificate, if they could give a certificate on this subject. So it's not so easy. Bhakti tradition says, you see all the different Puranas, the Purana of Prahlad or Dhruva, the Mahabharata, Ramayana, everything deals with relations actually. And resolving difficult relations. Sankhya says the same thing as basically as Advaita Vedanta. See the thoughts come and go as the Purusha. See Prakriti rising and falling and don't identify. Yoga says one step further. See the thoughts but then stop them from coming. Just be in that meditation. So these are, again, Swami Vivekananda said that real spirituality begins where dogmas and doctrines end. So what we're talking about today is how to make these things manifest. Swami Vivekananda said religion is actually manifest. Whatever the theory is, it must become manifest in our everyday life. He used this word practical Vedanta. Practical Vedanta includes karma, bhakti, jnana, raja yoga, everything. It must become manifest right here and right now. So anyways, when we have these difficult relationships, then when we sit for meditation, there's something called vyutthana. Vyutthana is that you're sitting, suddenly you think of your co-worker, and it just rises with such a force that you get off your seat. It all literally drives you out of your seat. So what we're talking about, the title of this 4-week course is Skillful Means. Gita says, Karma Sukoshalam, skillful means. Buddhism says this, Samadarshana, right thinking means skillful means, equanimity. So first, we're going, again, if anyone's interested, I think I gave it's in the handout, it's Yoga Sutras 1.33, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekshanam. Mudita is kind of similar to Maitri, means having gladness. When someone does well, having gladness for them. So we're jumping to Upekshanam. And there's 2 ways of looking at this. You raised a good question. What does toxic mean? What does wicked mean? So there's 2 different aspects to that. One is subjective. Like how many of you you've seen Durga Puja in Kolkata? So how many of you have heard of Durga Puja, seen the Durga Puja Murti? So you see Mother Durga, And she's what? With the Trishul, she's stabbing Mahishasura. So normally when we look at that, we think that this demon is somewhere out there. So we pray to the Divine Mother Durga, Mother, please take away my enemies. But we don't know that enemies within. That's another aspect. So there's subjective and objective. First, we can start with the subjective. So I'm going to read Swami Vivekananda's commentary to 1.33. Swamiji says, we must have these four sorts of ideas. We must have friendship for all. We must be merciful towards those that are in misery. When people are happy, we ought to be happy. And to the wicked, we must be indifferent. Question comes, what does he mean indifferent? So if I were there, I'd say, Swamiji, can you expand upon that? What do you mean indifferent? So with all subjects that come before us, if the subject is a good one, we shall feel friendly towards it. If the subject of thought is one that is miserable, we must be merciful towards the subject. Again, we talked about if the subject is good, we must feel friendly towards it. What he's talking about here, the best example is Facebook envy. That if somebody, our peer, is doing better than us, outside we say, wow, that's wonderful, but inside we're, not feeling so good about ourselves. Facebook envy, they call it. And sometimes when something bad happens to somebody else, it's a very subtle thing. We feel compassion, but at the same time we think, oh God, thank you, it's not me, So it's a very subtle things. These are very, very subtle. So how to feel actually such empathy, like Sri Sharada Devi, Holy Mother, would feel. When somebody lost their only child, they went to Holy Mother, and Holy Mother, after hearing everything, she started weeping in such a manner that the other person's grief went away, the person who was with her. This is one aspect. Yet, when that person left, Holy Mother again was doing her regular duties. So that's another aspect we'll get to, power of attachment to feel. And what Swami Vivekananda said, the second skillful mean, power to detach. And both should be equal. Otherwise, we won't get a good sleep at night. We'll be ruminating. If it is good, we must be glad. If it is evil, we must be indifferent. So what does he mean indifferent? These attitudes of the mind towards the different subjects that come before it will make the mind peaceful. So that's why this is important. Skillful means for what purpose? To have a more or less peaceful mind. What do we mean by peaceful? Buddhism says that best. A mind of equanimity, balanced. Most of the difficulties in our daily lives come from being unable to hold our minds in this way. That's it. This is the reason why we suffer. For instance, if a man does evil to us, instantly we want to react evil. So the best example of this is when we're driving and someone cuts us off. So we honk or whatever we do. We go and so that's where we're reacting at that time. Anger is coming up at that time. So Swamiji says when somebody does evil to us, instantly we want to react evil. Or if somebody insults us, right? What's our first impulse, Give back. One devotee, she's a friend of mine in Kolkata. So she was working with this other person, and the other person insulted her quite a bit. She was very soft. So one day that person got transferred. So I told her, well, at least that person's no longer, at least it's over now. Then she replied, it's not over till I give back. Thought she was so sweet. And instantly we want to react evil. And every reaction of evil shows that we are not able to hold the chitta. Chitta means the mind. Hold it down. It comes out in waves towards the object, and we lose our power. What do you think Swamiji means by we lose our power?
Because we lose our peacefulness of our mind. In other words, there will be more thoughts in the mind. So, in other words, it becomes something like, what do you call, vikshepa or something.
Okay, so because you don't have the microphone, anyways, we could pass the mic next time. Yeah, so Balakrishna ji said that it's because we react, so other thoughts come in the mind. So that's one explanation. But when we're talking about losing power, from a spiritual context, what we're talking about, what Swami Vivekananda says in Raja Yoga, to make progress in spiritual life, to have deeper meditations, to have more faith, we need concentration and something that he says is conservation of energy. So, conservation of what energy? Our psychic energy. So it's like Ramakrishna used to use the example, if we're like riding on a boat and there's too many holes in the boat's definitely not going to cross the ocean to the other shore. Those holes are what? Those holes are our mind reacting and reacting to this person, that person. That's why the major obstacle is in Yoga Sutras 1.4. Vritisarupyam itaratra. Each and every moment, each feeling, thought, I'm identified with that and I cannot stop it. People take medication for this just to stop the mind. They take alcohol. Nowadays, people go to the internet to what? Anesthetize the mind. So Swamiji says, anytime you can, every action, let me continue. Every reaction in the form of hatred or evil is so much loss to the mind. And every evil thought or deed of hatred or any thought of reaction, if it is controlled, will be laid in our favor. So this is another powerful thing. Every time, if I have some type of an addiction, the phone, every time the phone goes, if I can actually, that thing, if you can actually not pick it up, that's actually adding a willpower, just one link. So that's one type of practice we can take away today. I feel like eating something right now. No, let me restrain. How many of you saw that marshmallow test? Remember that there was that marshmallow test? These bachas, young, and they tested like, they put a marshmallow in front of them and they said, okay, if you can restrain for 5 or 10 minutes, you'll get an extra marshmallow. So one kid, he just ate, before the person left, he already ate it. He already ate the marshmallow. So other people, some kids were able to restrain. And other people, they felt tempted, but they started like poking it. And it had great significance afterwards. Those that were able to restrain as young kids, afterwards they found that they did much better on their SATs, on their scholastic, and their career in life, being less impulsive. And those that could not, it was they were more likely to be imprisoned, to whatever, get in trouble, or just their status, income, everything was much lower than those who could control, who could restrain. So that's one thing. So actually, that's one thing that we have to think about. That's not being taught. Actually, I went to Emory University 2 days ago, and they were asking, like, I was talking about my experience at Harvard. I even saw that at Harvard, actually. People protesting, but no one able to restrain. So anybody says anything, there has to be a big conference about it. And there'll be like a 3-month conference about it. Like, okay, this happened, so, what are we going to do? In fact, it takes 20 of the best minds to think of a response for 3 months. What are we going to say for this one person's comment? So think about the loss of energy. If that energy were directed in another way, they could have probably invented something like a Nobel Prize, 20 great minds of Harvard. Okay, so then, going back to this, if this wickedness is within us, is it nature or nurture? So the Gita says, Sadvisham cheshtate swasya prakrite jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. So even wise people act according to their natures. All living beings are propelled by their own tendencies. So what can restraint do? Of course, in the next sloka, Krishna says, no, you have to restrain. Otherwise, there's no hope. So that's the next sloka. But this is something very powerful. This is within our own nature. Everybody has their own nature. According to the yogas, our own nature means what? It's a combination of three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. We're all constituents of these three different gunas. The Gita 8, chapter 18, verses 23 to 25 talks about it. It says that action that is virtuous, free from attachment, and without craving for results is considered sattvic, a calm mind. Action that is driven purely by craving for pleasure, selfishness, and much effort is rajasic. Ambition, for example. Then final one, action that is undertaken because of delusion, disregarding consequences, without considering loss or injury to others or self, is called tamasic. So these are the three different types of tendencies. And the thing is that all of these are within all of us. So the thing is, there's a science behind recognizing our own gunas. I would also refer you, there's a talk by Swami Harinamananda on YouTube for anyone who's further interested. The name of the talk is Living Under the Three Vibrations. And he goes into analysis about this, about how to recognize what are these different gunas and how to recognize them and how to transform ourselves, how to objectify them and how to transform ourselves from them. So for example, when we wake up in the morning, we might be feeling tamasic, kind of lazy, you know. Yet once we take that first cup of coffee, we start speaking very fast and we become rajasic. Then sometimes, say later in the day, we feel like sitting down for meditation, noontime or evening time. Maybe not initially, but usually after the meditation, the mind is more sattvic, calmness. Yet, it's important to also understand what the Gita says. What is my predominant tendency? That's important too, to recognize that. Because actually we can't progress unless we actually know where we're at right now. So what is my predominant tendency? I can give you one, even each of these different gunas, they all have their sense of smell, vibration, taste. I'll give you one example. My own personal example. When I was, for a short time, I worked at the San Francisco DA's office. So when I would go into that environment, you have the judge, the criminals, the defendants, the prosecutor, the public defenders. When you first walk into that courtroom, you can feel like there's a certain type of smell, vibration. It's a combination of tamasic as well as rajasic. You can identify it. If you go in there, you know what I'm talking about. That's there. Then at the same time, when I would go back home, I was living in the first Hindu temple in Vedanta Society of Northern California, started by Swami Chidekananda ji. So there I would stay and I would just be completely collapsed. That's a very sattvic place. Every place has its own type of energy. Two days ago, I went to Emory University. When I went there, I felt, wow, this is just like Harvard. Exactly, everything was it. So we can just learn to be sensitive to our own vibrations and also the place we go to. If you go to a sports stadium, that'll be very rajasic. That has its own type of thing. If we go to a music concert, if we go to a bar, every place has its own different type of vibration. That's not from the place. That's from what? The people congregating there. So this is about what if we've talked about so far is about these learning to identify our different gunas and our for the purpose of identifying when our mind becomes tamasic. This takes that's why I was giving, I don't know how many of you did it, that idea of journaling. It's in the Jataka tales. One Buddhist monk gave a very nice example of what he used to do. When he used to sit for meditation, I ask everyone to kind of please put your phones on airplane mode or turn them off, please. Okay. So when Buddha would sit down in meditation, not Buddha, one of the monks would do so. As soon as anytime a bad thought came to his mind, he would take a black marble or black rock and put it. He had a bowl there, a jug. So every day he would sit down and we would put like. So after the first day, it's like he probably needed 2 or 3 pots. So many thoughts. But he stayed with it. He kept doing that. After 1 month, maybe it wasn't like 2 or 3 pots, maybe it became 2 pots, then 1 pot. Then he kept with this. Then after 6 months or 1 year, he finally found that not many were coming, not many bad thoughts were coming. So this is one technique we can apply. What it takes to do that is the Upanishads talk about this. It says that the mind of a spiritual aspirant must be as sensitive as a spider web falling on the eyelid. So the spider web falls on the eyelid, we become very sensitive. So the only way actually for self-transformation is first identification, objectification, accurate objectification, and then sensitivity. The mind must become sensitive towards anything if it really wishes to transcend that. Now, let's now talk about, we've so far talked about this upekshanam, this indifference, and identifying this evil or wicked qualities or tamasic qualities within ourselves. Now, let's talk about it from a relational perspective. Now, this requires even more nuance. And I'll give examples. I'll give examples of our Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda. Because I find that there's this one word in Bengali, Babaharika Buddhi, which I've used again and again. It means practical intelligence. So I find that, at least I can say as a lawyer, that I've found that those 3 are par excellence. I've not found any other minds or characters like them. Every action of theirs we see is filled with practical intelligence. So one is Ramakrishna. One time he was in his room in Dakshineshwar, and an angry monk came into just came into his room. He was very angry. He could see he was very angry. So what did Thakur do? He stood up and said in Bengali, "Kaku, uncle," and just stood up like that. So the monk wanted some tamak, some tobacco, and a light. So Ramakrishna quickly gave it to him, and he left. So afterwards, somebody teased Ramakrishna. "You're acting like sycophant, like just trying to please him." He said, no, this is how you deal with angry people. What did he mean by that? When a stranger like that comes, you do not engage. Let that wave come and go. Just step aside. So it's practical. Okay, what do you want? Oh, okay. So sometimes that might happen to us. We're going somewhere, someone wants, say some, whatever, how to handle things skillfully. This is one example of skillful means. Yet Holy Mother, a different encounter. There was a devotee named Harish. He was a disciple of Ramakrishna. His wife had given him some medicine which made him unbalanced. He went to Kamarpukur. He saw Holy Mother. He began chasing her around. So Mother's very bashful, so she starts running. He keeps chasing her around, running. Finally, Mother said enough. Mother took him, slammed him down, put her knee on his chest, and started hitting him again and again. So it's like Mother Durga right there, slapping down Mahishasura until he became unconscious. This is another example. So maybe we can't act like that, or maybe what if the person's bigger or stronger than we are? Yet what we have to do, how do we de-escalate the situation? How do we use our practical intelligence? How do we solve the situation? Different ways. So that's what, again, I talked about that last week, what Dr. Carol Dweck used. Once you can objectify the problem, applying the resourceful mind. This is what Ramakrishna meant by Vyavaharika Buddhi, practical intelligence. This is skillful means. The third example took place in 1882. Now Ramakrishna could see that Swami Vivekananda, he was blessed with so many qualities that he could see that people were going to be jealous of him. People were going to criticize him. In fact, just one side note, when I lived in Advaita ashram, I lived very close by to this Metropolitan Institute where Swami Vivekananda was the headmaster for about 3 months, until Vidyasagar's grandson became so jealous that so he spread a rumor about him. And after that, he couldn't even find a single job. So this is the type of thing. So Ramakrishna was seeing this, Ramakrishna was trying to test Narendranath Datta, Swami Vivekananda's pre-monastic name. He asked him, they were talking about criticism of worldly people. So Ramakrishna was asking Narendranath, how do you feel about it? Worldly people say all kinds of things about the spiritually minded. But look here, when an elephant moves along the street, any number of other small animals may bark and cry after it. But the elephant does not even look back at them. So the elephant is that majestic spiritual soul walking. So all these small, especially in India, especially in Kolkata, you have these street dogs. And they'll start barking. So then Ramakrishna continues, if people speak ill of you, what will you think of them? Then Narendranath replies, I shall think that dogs are barking at me. Kukur ghau ghau kurchi. I shall think that dogs are barking after me. Then Ramakrishna went the other, no, don't go, he was laughing, he said, don't go so far. God dwells in all beings. So, but you should only be intimate with good people. You must keep away from the evil-minded. And when he says intimate, I'll add one thing to it. I think Bhadralok, he would use that word, good people. But I would add one thing, intimate even with similar, a person could be good, but they may not have the same temperament as myself. So to really be intimate means to share yourself and not be misunderstood. You cannot be intimate with so many people. Our family members, and we have to be intimate with them. There's no way. So that's our sadhana, where we can't avoid. So then Ramakrishna continued, God is even in the tiger, but you cannot embrace the tiger. Bhagalingam Korvina in Bengali. So you cannot embrace the tiger. So what is he doing here? He's applying that practical intelligence. Don't go too much this way, don't go too much that way. What Buddha said, Madhyapanta, the middle path. sometimes now there's different types of people that when people come, people do us harm. One type of person will more likely to retaliate, hit back. That antagonizes, so that goes on and on, right? That's one type, to react. Another type, and I saw this with some of my friends in Harvard and other places too, India as well, that they're passive aggressive. So they don't say anything. They just allow that person to say that. They think they're being saintly. Yet, what's happening by not saying something, we're also contributing to the problem. So I saw with one of my friends that I learned this actually when I saw her, that unless we draw boundaries, it's very, very, very important to draw boundaries in our life to protect our own space, our own sacred space. So again, we have to ask ourselves, what temperament are we? So a person who's passive aggressive, they might think I'm being saintly by not reacting, by showing the quality of ahimsa, forgiveness. Yet Swami Vivekananda had a very interesting definition of ahimsa. Who can practice ahimsa? Only that person who can bring legions of forces to their knees. That person then can forgive. He used that in a specific context towards Sister Christine, somebody who's very passive aggressive. Yet you can't use that context if somebody is more a bullying type or reacts. So then there's another type to use then. Again, we have to know our own temperament. That's very, very important. It's not one size fits all. Another way to practice indifference is silence. How many of you have met here are the type that if somebody, some people can really give a heavy silence, a very strong silence. It's like it's better if they had shouted. I was once with one great monk, one of my spiritual teachers, Swami Prabodhanandaji from San Francisco. How many of you here have ever heard of him? Say, oh, you okay? Did you ever meet him? Oh, you met him, okay.
I met him. It was the first time I've ever been to a Vedanta center. I walked in and just wanted to see it, and he was sitting there on the stage.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Okay, he's a great soul. You met him also?
No. He has
okay.
a talk on YouTube.
Oh, okay, great, wonderful. So I was very close to him. He's one of my Upa gurus, you can say. So one day, I was with him when I was working at the DA's office. So I was asking him about indifference, and so he said this: you can give a heavy silence. So I asked him, what do you mean? Next moment, we were both in the car, he became silent. Wow, that silence was so heavy. I still remember it today. That silence is very powerful too. Another way is not to react immediately. If you're a reactor, if you're a person that reacts, so not to react immediately. By not reacting immediately, what do? Two things. Swami Vivekananda said, you gain some power. Secondly, you give your mind time to think. You give it, even if is it worth it to react? This is not repression. This is not like you've insulted me and now I'm not going to say, I'll just stew over it, Not like that. No, let me just wait. So what is it we're doing? And not like Advaita Vedanta, we're not going beyond time, but we're elongating time. Bringing my mind, my sense of agency, elongating that moment. It's a very powerful thing. At first, we may not be able to do it. At first, that's why they say, just take a couple of breaths, try. Once my brother was practicing this on me. So once I said something, and then rather than reacting, he starts saying, Sarva Mangala Mangale. That got me even more angry. Trying to be holier than thou. So, but that's a very powerful thing, just to wait. That's another technique. One is silence, another is not to say anything, but I'm not going to be a doormat. Give me time, you know. Now, there's another aspect to toxicity. Not reacting is one thing, but there's another quality that we have to also cultivate, because we can't again spend our time all the time managing everybody, you know. We won't have any time for ourselves then, every moment. So there's, from the Viveka Chudamani, there's one slokam about titiksha. It reads, Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chintavila parahitam satitiksha nigadyate. So this chintavila parahitam, that means bearing all afflictions without ruminating over them, without brooding over them. This is very important. The worst thing, you know, hook or crook, we should not brood over things. That's the thing we have to avoid. I've seen some monks, they become angry, but then the next moment their mind is free. Okay, maybe the other person's feeling bad for the next year, but that person's mind is free. So, but we should not brood over things either. That's very, very important. And otherwise that affects our meditation. It affects our peace of mind. Now, we've talked about different aspects from yoga, from the subjective and relational according to Hinduism. Buddhism looks at it in a different way. It looks at it as equanimity of mind. Kalyan mitta, that loving kindness even towards the evil-minded. That's what it says. Those are very advanced souls. So we don't subscribe to that so much. We say using skillful means, you could maybe one day get there. I'll give you an example of one person who I saw had gotten there. How many of you here have heard of Swami Atma Tattvananda, Shiva Maharaj from Hollywood? Okay, if you go inside our monastery, you'll see a monk, and next to the monk there's a bear sitting, a big brown bear sitting next to him. That's our Shiva Maharaj. So Shiva Maharaj was like Lord Shiva. He was had a very, very big heart. So he was a monk of the Hollywood Center, and he was also like Lord Shiva. He was a little bit pagla, a little bit crazy. You never know where he was going at night, you know. He used to go at nighttime to serve the poor people. And one day he went out in the nighttime, and he was coming back at midnight. And then someone approached him and said, "Give me your money." And he said, "Look, you know, I'm a monk. I don't have any money." So he's explaining everything, and suddenly that person took a bottle and hit him on the head. He fell down. His head hit the ground. He lost 2 teeth, a splatter of blood. He actually had a subdermal hematoma. Yet, in the next moment, even after falling down, he got right back up and said, "Brother, I love you." See, at that time, midnight, you're in a dark alley, and you're hit, you fall. You know, when you fall, you're in shock, right? Yet that mind of that soul is that great soul, without even thinking, next time moment getting up and said, "Brother, I love you." So, our Swami Swananji used to tease Shiva Maharaj. He said, "It's too bad you're a monk of the Vedanta society. If you were independent, you would have your own church." And he said, like, even Gandhi, when he got hit, he first had to practice ahimsa. But just a spontaneously, the thought not even arising. There's nothing to put down. There's nothing but love. That's something, you know, quite rare. Now, one thing about what Buddhism says, why we should love our enemies and wish that no harm may befall them. Why should we wish them success in their good endeavors? They gave the explanation that it does no good to hold on to anger or resentment. Why? Because Holy Mother gave the best example of this. She said that not to criticize others. Why? Say I make a judgment call about you. What do I have to do first? I first have to take that quality I'm thinking about in you, bringing in my mind, and then project it out. So who's getting affected when I do that? Who is getting, is the other person getting affected? Or am I getting affected? So this is why Holy Mother's famous advice, if you want peace of mind, don't look at the faults of others. So Buddha used to ask, this was from my friendship class with Professor Charles Hallesley in Harvard. We took a class on friendship, and we were talking about the Bodhisattva ideal. This ideal of seeing goodness in your enemies, none of us in the class could digest it. But this Professor Hallesley, he used to talk about it, and he really had that quality. In fact, all of us, 50, 80, 100 of us would just sit around him. We would kind of be in awe. He had that quality. We saw that in him. People would ask all types of questions. He would be very graceful and loving in how and spacious. He was spacious. So what he used to ask is, he used to quote this from Buddha asking Ananda, his disciple, Ananda, are you tolerating those who are being jerks to you? So this is the Bodhisattva ideal. So with that, I'm going to now conclude that we've talked about these different techniques today. We talked about upekshanam, indifference. And after giving the talk, we could say it's holy indifference, not indifference in a passive-aggressive, negative way. Okay? It's a holy indifference. And we talked about how it could be practiced according to Vedanta yoga. First, subjectively, that means observing our own gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and seeing our different states of mind, seeing when we're being also tamasic, when we're being the person that's giving another person a hard time. That's so hard to do, you know. And then the worst thing is when we do that, then they say, you're being like this, then we get even more defensive. And your mind gets more, you get more entangled. So we talked about that. We also talked about how that's one thing to evaluate one's own tendencies when one's reacting, when one's getting. And then we also talked about indifference, upekshanam, from a relational perspective, and how to different ways, how Ramakrishna handled an unjust person, how Holy Mother did, Swami Vivekananda did. And so the idea is different ways to do it. One way might, like Ramakrishna did, he stood quiet, like a Vedantin, like this. He just saw this play of the world. Okay, the Divine Mother now is bringing this drunk person in front of me. So let me now handle that. Let me step aside. Let him walk through. Holy Mother had to do it a different way. Somebody was attacking her. So she assumed her Mother Durga form. So how are we going to handle that if that happens to us? Resourceful mind. And we also talked about different ways to do it. Practice this holy indifference. So one way is silence. But not the brooding silence. It should not affect me. It should not. Buddha said this, when someone came and criticized Buddha, he was criticizing him for like an hour, saying all these negative things. And Buddha just sat calmly. At the end of that hour, then Buddha asked him a question. He was tired out. He said, "Oh, what happens if somebody gives you a gift and you don't accept it, where does the gift go? Back to the giver. So the person who did all that, they have to go back with it. So that's sometimes the sweetest justice, not to react. Let that person take back what they said with themselves. Yet at the same time, we have to protect our unconscious mind as well. That's very important too. This is very powerful. That's why they say affirmations. Affirmations are not for the conscious mind. It's for the unconscious mind. So how do we protect that unconscious mind? Maybe not from that person, but if somebody says something about me, we have to objectively look at it. Is it true or not? A lot of times people don't have all of the information. So if it's someone who we kind of respect, we have to look at it objectively. If it's not correct, we have to then state the facts. No, I don't agree with you. This is why. Swami Vivekananda said this Maya is nothing but a statement of facts. Not Swapnavat, this, not Maya is a dream. Maybe Shankaracharya said that, but Swami Vivekananda said this. He said, be practical. Otherwise, sometimes people, too much theory and not enough embodiment. So that was it. And we talked about holy indifference in different types of ways. So everyone has to think about different ways they can apply that. It's not one size fits all. It's depending upon our own temperament. And the thing is that finally we'll conclude with what Christ said. And this is not for strangers, but this is more for in a workplace, in an ashram, in a wherever, in our home. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall inherit the earth. So how can we be a peacemaker? Right, in our own setting, that where we have we're getting triggered with other people. How can we that's a spiritual practice too. How can we bring our mind to that level? And one of the ways to do that is, it's hard unless we have communication, unfortunately. Communication helps to heal, bring in a lot of healing, actually. So, but that's also a good aspiration to have. So right now, wow, it's 8:30. So with that, I'll conclude. And then we can take now questions and answers too. We can start with Zoom first, and if anyone has any question. The other thing is, if you have a question, you have to show your face. So it's like, it's the tax you pay. If you ask a question, you have to show your face and say your name as well.
Yeah, but Pranam Swamiji. Yeah.
Namaste, Martinji.
Thank you so much for sending me the invite. I have a question for you. I have been in the Vedanta, I've been initiated 5 years ago, but I've always heard from many Swamis about the greatness of Swami Vivekananda. I don't question that for sure. But in his letters in 1902, prior to his passing away, he also was tired of people. He was like, I don't want to read any letters. He's had a lot of tough conversations and tough relationships in the US. So if he was not able to manage his energy, or if he felt disconnected, sometimes I wonder how can I manage relationships if a man like him got kind of burnt out, to be honest. And so in his letters, he says it, I don't want to read any letters. I'm done with people and I'm tired. Right? So how do you explain that?
Yes, that's an excellent question, Ratan. Thank you for asking that question. Did everybody hear the question? If Swami Vivekananda felt tired of people at the end of his life, what hope do we have? So now, the answer to that is that that's why Swami Vivekananda said it will take another Vivekananda to understand what this Vivekananda has done. So what he did between 1893 and 1902, we cannot understand actually. He's what you call, we're all working in Vedanta, Vyashti, the individual level. So such teachers like him, they're working at the cosmic level. And so they have to give, like Christ was crucified. If you say like, what's the point of living like Christ if I'm going to get crucified at the end of my life? but they don't live for themselves. So they live for others. So that's the thing. So what he did during that time period, we're only starting to see the effect only slowly right now, actually. They said it would take another, 1,200 years for the full effect of his thought to manifest itself. So it's very difficult to understand what Swami Vivekananda did. And if you read his life, you read all the different types of, when he went to America, what he faced. One thing I love about Swami Vivekananda, he was real. He didn't sugarcoat things. Thank God for those letters, because that gives solace to us. If he faced so many different types of struggles, and in the midst of that, he had to spread the message of Vedanta in the West. He had to build up the Ramakrishna Mountain mission. He had to change the very he had to change the very idea of India and give the thought of freedom. He injected that idea of freedom, mukti for India. He had to undo that colonial mindset of the West that the British had given for hundreds and hundreds of years that made Indians feel so weak. So I can't talk about him actually, because he's what he is, we don't know actually. But we're blessed that he came, and we're blessed to be in his ashram. That's all I can say. Thank you for the question.
Namaste, Swamiji. Shailesh here.
Oh yes, Shailesh, yes.
So you started with the thought that watch the play as an illusion, and I really liked it. And I think sometimes that helps to stand away, stand apart from so many things which go on in the intellect and mind. But that was not actually kind of fitting. But at the end, you really said it well, saying that holy indifference. So there should be holiness. I mean, I will try to understand that more. And even if I'm watching the illusion, there is a holy indifference. So there is compassion and everything in it. So that was a very good point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Pranam Swamiji. This is Tilak from Rhode Island. My question is how if the toxicity has entered you, how do you detoxify once you've allowed the negativity to swirl inside you because of the encounter? How do you get it out of your system?
Right. So then, well, let me put the question back at you. How do you detoxify anything? Right? What do we detoxify? Normally, we go to Ayurvedic centers in Kerala, and we're trying to detoxify all the bad things we've eaten. So, same type of thing we have to do. If we want to detoxify, we need a positive spiritual diet, not the negative diet and the negative habits. So sometimes they say in the Yoga Sutras, this tapasya, and Ramakrishna used to say that going into a solitude for some time, trying to meditate, trying to read, trying to engage in holy thoughts, trying to engage in good thoughts, divine thoughts, reading the lives of divine people, meditating upon that type of a thing. Going to a retreat. You could have gone to a cinema retreat we just had a couple of months ago. So people felt really rejuvenated then. So if you can do something even better in a spiritual community, like a retreat.
I loved the analogy you gave, Swamiji, of letting the wave pass. That was very, clear. You could see it, just to let what's going on happen and observe it and not react. Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay, thank you. And just on that point, letting the wave pass, but we also have to be in the mood to let the wave pass. That's not always easy to do. So we have to be prepared. So one Swami used to tell us, Swami Chidekananda, because he was very consistent his whole life. I never saw him have a bad day. So our morning routine should be that when we wake up, we have such a routine that by 6 or 7 o'clock or whatever in the morning, we're ready to face the world. So that means we do our exercise, we do our meditation, we have our healthy diet, we get a good sleep. So by that early morning, we're ready to face the world and face things. Yeah.
I think we have one from Rajiv.
Rajiv? Okay. Please show yourself, Rajiv.
Yeah, Swamiji, namaste. You mentioned about the wave, so it seems like there's, and I've kind of like, especially when if you're facing like some sort of anxiety or some sort of issues, often the negative emotions comes in waves. And can you talk more about this waves, like how to catch the wave, like how to like overcome the wave before it starts kind of building up?
That's a great question, Rajiv. I think that's what we're talking about. The first part of our talk, we talked about the subjective anger, the vicious, the evil person with the evil tendencies within ourselves. So I think that one thing that some techniques we talked about was to one thing is, if we're not in the habit of that, when something happens, not to immediately react. Usually a wave comes when we are reacting to something. So if we don't react, if we can just wait, not to immediately react. Maybe I'll give a reaction later on. Let me just think. Because in the moment, my breathing's changing, my mind is not working, my mind is reactive. We want to make the mind responsive, not reactive. In the Gita, in Vedanta, we say the buddhi, right? The intellect. The intellect faculty cannot operate when we're in a reactive mood. So we have to give time. Holy Mother always did this. She always gave time. She never gave an immediate reply. She always gave time. And then what reply she gave, what wisdom she gave, it was very insightful. So if we can give time, I think that that's a good practice. Next time it happens, try to give a little bit of time, not to necessarily say anything in the moment. Then what happens is afterwards we can actually see, is it even worth doing? I said this last week, I think. Abraham Lincoln. You've heard of Abraham Lincoln, the great president? They said he was he never got angry. And yet at the end of his life, what they found was that when they opened up his drawer, they found many letters. He had written many letters to many people. And they were like really angry letters. Like, you said this, you said that. It's like, and he's replying. But they were never sent out. So another thing we can do in addition to giving time, journaling is a nice thing. Writing the letter out. Writing the email out, but don't send it. Wait. Email's a little risky. It's better to go through like Microsoft Word, just write it like a Word document. Yeah.
Swami, can I ask a question?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is my friend Mary Alice my friend from Harvard. Yeah.
Hi, Swami. Thank you for this wonderful teachings. I wanted to ask you, when Abraham Lincoln was younger, before he learned some of the principles you're discussing, I have read in a biography of him that he would fight people a lot, that he had a bad temper, and that he was very judgmental, and that he put himself in the public sphere behaving in ways that were the two latter gunas you describe, rajasic and tamasic. And he didn't live in an era with the internet and cell phones and our words in history is being recorded in ink. So we're now having this moment of consciousness. So my question is, how do we show up with what you're teaching us today and what Swami Vivekananda and others have taught, and make these changes to transform in the midst of an environment in which previous behaviors, I'm talking about my previous behaviors or anyone else, that these mistakes are so public that you can't just walk away from them. And so I think I sense a lot of fear in humanity right now of just wanting to hide out I don't want to even show up as a better person spiritually. I just want to hide out, because if I try to change and be that peacemaker and be that new person, well, there's a chance that someone's going to come out and say, well, you're a hypocrite. You did this thing that one time and I have proof, and I'm going to smear you and cancel you and erase you or dismiss you. So I'm very interested when you're thinking about how to meet this new moment that maybe Swami Vivekananda wasn't in, or maybe there's a translatable, concept from his day and age. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So that's the thing that is a great problem. So um, I think sometimes it helps just to kind of, maybe they're not, if that's the case, if we can't, we can take actions in public, but any action you take in public, you have to have you should have the digestion, you should have the ability to accept to digest the consequences. So if you want to put something out in the public, for the public sphere, I think in Harvard we use that term, speak your truth to power, or was it speak your power to truth? One of the two. But then you have to, those who do that, and that's a problem. If you don't have that power to digest the reaction of others, then sometimes it's better not to say anything then. You know what I'm saying? And because if we put ourselves in the public sphere, then everything is fair game. We have to know that what we're in for. So I think that's important, that whatever we do, we should have the capacity to digest the consequences.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the Zoom audience? Okay. Well, we have a lot of names without the form. Okay. We'll take from here then. Anyone has? Okay. No, hang on. You get to stand up here too, so people can see too.
To follow up on that question, even
can they see? Let's just do this.
To follow up on that question, isn't that better to accept whatever the mistake we made, and if it comes into the present picture again, say, hey, in my ignorance, I did all those things. Isn't that better? It gives both you and your opponent some kind of a way to out.
Right. I think that's true, but then the person, like, sometimes we're dealing with people who are not rational. So if you say something then they'll hold that against you. They won't take it. Like, you have to have people with the same temperament that they both want resolution. The problem is sometimes people, they enjoy the conflict. In fact, they don't feel at peace without that conflict. They need that conflict. They live, in fact, life doesn't have meaning without that conflict. What do you do then, So those people will keep harassing you, right? So that's why you can't, whatever you may say, it's like, if you go to the zoo and just see a bunch of hyenas, you start, they're going to howl back, right? They're going to want you for lunch. So you have to see how to expend your energy. What's a wise, in yoga we say conservation of energy. How can we most effectively how do we most effectively utilize our energy and conserve it as well? Like, sometimes if something's in the public sphere, if you keep, that also has its own type of energy too. It eats people up from inside and out. In fact, worse than the outside reaction is the inner reaction. Like all these tweets going on and the media beating up on somebody, that's from the outside, but what does that do to the person? Right? So this is the thing, it ostracizes the person. So how to, anyways, Mary Alice, that's also a different option as well. But anyways. Okay, any other? Shwetaji.
Namaste, Swamiji.
You could say your name too. You could stand up so people can see.
Okay. My name is Swami. When we are having a negative interaction and we choose not to react and not to even respond or respond with silence, aren't we creating some kind of a vritti or a groove in our subconscious, even if it's temporary? And if we, is that not going to sort of, even if later on we realize that it's not worth uh, responding at all, if we overcome that by some other contemplation, higher thinking, whatever, but is there not a groove created
That's less than if you react, that'll escalate things further. Those things are not, we have so many grooves in the mind, that's okay. As long as we don't ruminate over it too much, we have to be able to digest that non-reaction. Or you can do journaling, you can write, give time. The main thing is to give time. Because the mind is unconscious at that time. When it's in a reactive state, it's very, very unconscious. And you don't know what it's going to say. Lots of times we get in trouble, like Will Smith. Did you remember the Oscars? Afterwards, he said, the devil made me do it. So that's what I'm saying. We have to, that unconscious, it's like the Mahishashvara within ourselves, the demon within ourselves. We have to manage that, That's the main thing. How are we going to manage that? That's the big elephant in the room, So that's what we got to deal with. Yeah.
Can we sit in front of Thakur and give it all to him?
Sure, whatever you want to do. Yeah, that's good. You could, but he might give it back then,
Maybe then I'll give it to mother.
Yeah.
We won't give it back.
No, go ahead, Glenn.
Pranam Swamiji. Glenn Williams. Quick question. So I am very much a reactor, and I found that taking time helps. But a lot of stuff we talk about today it really requires attention and awareness to how your mind, what you're doing in that specific moment. And it brings me back to a reading of Holy Mother. She practiced the 5 fires, where she was intentionally restricting, sort of outward pleasure in order to build up that willpower. Would you suggest creating, not necessarily 5 fires, but putting yourself in a position where, you are trying to build up the willpower by, maybe approaching the situation as a sadhana and saying, hey, regardless of what happens, I'm not going to react because it builds up the willpower going forward.
So yeah, that's an excellent question, Glenn. So I think the best, what I feel is that one of the best solutions to that is what the Yoga Sutras say. It's 2.1. It talks about a concept called Kriya Yoga. And it says Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. So tapas means austerity. But it has to also be combined with Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means study of the scriptures, study of some good spiritual food. The diet has to be healthy. So the thoughts, something good, the life of mother, the Vedanta, something. Tapas, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana. Ishvara Pranidhana means devotion to the Lord, self-surrender, devotion to the Lord. So these 3 things, if they're combined, that's a good thing. Even taking a few days off, going into a different space, sometimes that helps. Especially in Glenn's a corporate attorney, so reacting is just part of it's part of your bread and butter, right? So, but how to control that, that's the main thing. Swami Vivekananda used to react. That's okay. Not react, respond. There's a big difference between reacting and responding. So reaction is from the unconscious, and responding is from the conscious. So I think that's a good thing, though. Removing ourselves from that space. Ramakrishna said that too. Bone kone mone. Go into, separate yourself if you're working in the world. Occasionally you go into a forest, into a solitude, and just take some books and just be in that space. Remove yourself. Put yourself in another space like that. And eat less. Holy Mother said that too. If we're facing a really difficult problem, this is in the life of Holy Mother. She told us to Swami Shantanandaji that if you're ever in a really difficult situation, keep low. For 3 or 4 days, don't say much. Don't talk much. Don't eat much. Do more sadhana. Do more meditation. Be prayerful. And wait. So by something the solution may come. If it does not come, keep waiting. Sure.
I am Nalan Kundu. I enjoyed your presentation. The question is
You have to speak up a little bit.
When someone is very aggressive or angry, then as you said, keep quiet or give time. So that means you lower the temperature.
Yes.
Lower the temperature.
Yes, that's true. Is my father watching? I can't see if he's. I'm not telling. Is my father? Can you just do the whole thing? Let me see if my father's online. Let me see if yeah, he's there. Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna say it anyway. So I do that with my father sometimes, you know. So sometimes like he might shout, you know, he might say something, and I shout back, and it goes on and on and on. But one day we went to Trabuco Canyon. He shouted, and I just kept quiet, you know.
Yeah.
And that was like an aha moment at that moment. So I remember that even now. So yeah, if you can, when the temperature is hot, a lot of times what you can see, it's not what we say, it's the way we say it too.
Exactly.
So
Tone and intensity.
the tone and intensity.
That makes the difference.
So if we have that, if we want to try to bring that like a peacemaker, that's why that, not for the sake of peace, but just for the sake of just being, just so I can have, I just want to keep, you know, I want to keep my energy to myself. I don't want it to go out on you. I don't want anybody to have that control over me. Yeah.
It happens, husband and wife, brother, sister, everywhere.
Sure, absolutely. Between monks, especially. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's why the brahmacharya that you have to
Yeah.
observe brahmacharya to control your mind.
So there's one word in Bengali, dharja shakti,
Yes.
which means this power to hold, restrain.
Yes.
In your Yoga Sutras, it's dharana, holding, right? So dharja shakti.
So when someone is angry, if you return back, you're positively reinforcing that anger. And
You're
go
doing
on
that.
and on and on.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a psychic Star Wars. You know, you'll
Exactly.
get emotionally drained. So it's better not to avoid that
Exactly.
somehow.
But as you said earlier, cool down, give time. Probably you can talk to him in an intelligent way later on.
Right.
That would be. But regarding toxicity, I mean, what we eat, that develops the toxicity in the body. And that's our personality. People who eat meat and other stuff, they are angry, some of them. So you said 3 gunas.
No, is that your question or is that a statement? Is that your question? You can't keep talking. You ask the question, then I'll reply.
My question is that means.
So no, I'll reply to that question. You ask the question, I'll reply to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
My question is that.
Yeah.
What do we eat? That's our personality.
No, not necessarily. So let me reply to that. Okay, I'll reply. So this is not what Ramakrishna said. So Ramakrishna, eating what you eat, it may or may not. So you can't try to impose your doctrinal thing on me. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like one size fits all. So Ramakrishna said it in the Lila Prasanga. He said this, that what is it? Some things might be just be vegetarian, but they may be the worst people in the entire world. Hitler was a vegetarian, and yet he said, what does it even matter if one eats pork, which is like the most forbidden food in India, if one thinks of God, and if one eats vegetarian food, but they think of worldly things. So there's not necessarily a correlation. So you can't make that. You could say that for yourself, but you don't. We should not impose that upon others.
But if the 3 gunas has something to do.
Not necessarily, but everyone's gunas responds differently.
Okay.
So yeah, we had many. That's very important. So we should not like regarding diet, because sometimes there's this idea that if you're vegetarian, you're spiritual, and if you're non-vegetarian, you're materialistic. Well, I've seen many that, you know, vegetarian, I wish they didn't. I wish they were not vegetarian. So it depends upon your individual constitution. In fact, Swami Vivekananda critiqued that in India in the end of the 19th century, that he said that first have something to eat, first get your bones strong, first be strong. You can only be spiritual if you're strong. If you're just weak, you don't have any energy, and you just then, we're like that wall then, right? We're just jadabat, So first build up the mind, build up the body, and then from there. So that's a very individual thing. For what you're saying is true for some people, but not necessarily.
But control of mind is the most important. How you control it.
Right. But that's true. Thank you. Okay. Okay, last question. It's 8:59, so you gotta.
Yeah, my question is very quick. That just you are saying that be strong. So if
You have to speak in the microphone.
You are just saying that be strong. But what I feel that if we don't respond to our, particularly in office environment, and if you keep silent, if you keep quiet, give them space and all, they feel that this guy is weak and I can ride on him. I feel sometimes like that. So how to handle that type of situation?
Yes. So that's what one Swami in Silamar said. Being indifferent does not mean being a doormat, right? So we talked about the example of Ramakrishna, how he handled something, how Holy Mother. So the main thing is that we're saying again and again, we have to bring our practical intelligence into it, So it should be something that, yes, people should definitely sense that you're not being silent out of weakness. So that's an important point. So that takes our own thought, how to do that, So that means not to be reactive. What you just said right now, to even achieve that result, that takes some pause in contemplation. Solutions are there.
So you're saying that tolerance is not a weakness.
Tolerance is not a weakness?
It's not a weakness.
No, it depends upon the intent of the person. So yeah, so it depends.
If you always keep quiet, then they will get on on you.
So,
But then you have to come to a conclusion and decide and interact.
okay. Okay, so now we've concluded right now. So thank you all so much for coming. And I think Swami Sarvadevananji will be coming tomorrow. He's coming. Tomorrow evening? Okay. So again, I'm making an announcement that he'll be here from Friday. He's giving a talk on Friday on meditation and mantra diksha, and Saturday he's giving initiation. Is he giving a class on Saturday? And he's giving class on Saturday evening. Sunday he's giving a lecture. Monday, Tuesday too.
Sunday morning he's giving a lecture at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sunday evening at 7:30 starting the Shanti Gita series. Monday evening 7:30, Tuesday evening 7:30. All those are Shanti Gita 1, 2 and 3.
Okay, so I know it's difficult, but try to come when you can. He's a very holy, elevated monk of our order, so we're very blessed to have him come here and bless this sacred space. And last thing I wanted to say is Eve, so one of our devotees, she'll be giving I've been giving a series of talks on pilgrimages. And I also mentioned that pilgrimages are not just spiritual places, but they're also places of historical significance, of great characters, great world leaders. So Eves is going to show us around on Saturday, August 4th, places associated with Martin Luther King. And we're in Georgia, so this will be a real treat. And I think you'll send us some readings to do ahead of time. She'll send us some readings to do ahead of time. And so anyone who wants to come, we'll have an RSVP on the website. So just let us know ahead of time.
Is that take the third Swami as a...
Yeah, that's probably the 3rd of August on a Saturday. It'll be in the morning time. So we'll give further details on the internet website. and WhatsApp as
Can
well.
we start from here?
Yeah, we'll start from here. Okay, thank you so much. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu. Okay.